Hey everyone, welcome to another exciting Ask the Trainer session. And today I am joined by Darren as well as Dr. Sassi. So here they are. Oh, we cannot see Dr. Sassi in the stream, so let's do it like this. I will fix that in a second. But he's there. Also in the background, we have Michelle and Noseman. Well, first of all, maybe if you could tell us if you can hear every one of us well, that would be cool. Just type in yes or something in the chat. And yeah, today is exciting because last week we had a launch event. So there is a new version of Cinema 4D out, Cinema 4D S26, and also that includes Redshift. So yeah, let me quickly start with the housekeeping. So yeah, I'm going to share my screen here, and the housekeeping includes the event site on the Maxon website. So if you go to maxon.net/events, you will get to this page. You can also find it under news, events, and here you see all of the webinars that we're doing listed. And yeah, you can join everything that is hosted by us for free. Some of the things that are on here are paid things like FMX, which is happening next week in Europe, in Germany. And yeah, whenever we do some webinars here at Maxon, we share them later on the Maxon Training Team YouTube channel. So here, yeah, you can find the recordings of the webinars that we're doing and a few other things like quick tips and so on. Right, and because we like you so much, and we hope that you like us so much, and you are on our streams quite often, if not always, we want to give away free t-shirts. So yeah, here you can see the side of the Maxon Ask the Trainer exclusive wear store, and there is a coupon code that Michelle, I think, is going to paste in the chat every second. So yeah, just type in that code when you enter this website, and then you can get a discount, a 100% discount for a t-shirt. You don't have to pay for it, you just have to pay for the shipping. So you can order one t-shirt for free, which is really cool. All right, now, yeah, the next thing that we're gonna do is we're directly going to jump in to Cinema 4D. So let me open up Cinema 4D, and you can see that I have a blank scene here because I want to show you a few things. For example, now if you have like multiple objects in the scene, and we're just gonna create two objects here and select both of them, you can see that when we go to the coordinates and we have the X position like differently on both of them. It's not having this long text in there, but it just says mixed. But the even better thing about numerical input fields is that we now support 4 decimals instead of 3. So 1 decimal more, which might be pretty cool, for example, when you set up Redshift materials and stuff like that. All right, so another thing that we have in here is if you create some sort of text, can be anything. Let me really create a text object. So and if you then go to the object tab, you will see that if we want to like search for a font, there is now a font filter at the very top here. I don't know if you can see it. Well, maybe let me go to this view here, then everything is a little bit bigger. So at the very top up here, there's a font filter. So if we want to search for like times, so this is string based. So whatever font has got the string time in it at the moment will be shown here. We can do the same with Verd for Verdana and every other thing. So you don't have to scroll like miles in here. You just can filter the whole list. And then there is another thing that we added for text splines, not in the text object, also not in this text spline object, but there is a node-based text spline object that you can find in the asset browser. If you search for text and nodes, there is a text node operator here. And you can also add that to the object manager. And in here, you find a checkbox that is called Use Variable Font. So we now support variable fonts, which is a pretty cool thing. So just to show you what you can do with variable fonts, once you activate this, it's asking you for a variable font. Let me quickly search for some, well, you know, we are prepared sometimes, and that's why I already had this folder open. So I just opened this variable font, and here we go. So we have these two parameters that we can adjust. So you can see we can go from lightweight to really bold text here, for example. We can also merge the segments here, which is quite nice. And also the optical size here can be changed. So these are the variable fonts. I'm very curious about what you're going to come up with once you play with that, because you can, of course, extrude this stuff and so on, and do all sorts of cool things with these variable fonts, and then play with the parameters here, and also animate them, of course. All right, so let me go to the next topic. And the next topic, which is one of the bigger topics in this release, is remeshing. So let me go to this scene. I have this screw. You might have seen it in the feature video. And so one thing I want to show you here is, let me quickly go to Guru shading with lines so you can see the lines here. You can see that I built this whole screw using the volume measure, which means that the topology is, well, quite dense, especially in those areas here where we need a lot of detail. That's because I brought up the adaptive parameter in the volume measure. If you bring it down to 0, you will just have the same density all over the place. But it's always a good idea to reduce it a little bit, especially when you want to use it with a remesher, because then it has way less polygons to calculate. So let me add a remesher. So here's the remesh generator. And by default, it is set to ZRemesher now. And the mode is mesh density. So let's bring this down before we plug that stuff in. And let me go down to 5% or so. And let's just throw the volume measure in. And then you have to wait until it's calculated. And there we go. So we see that this has been remeshed. Maybe we can be a little bit denser here, like so, or even more, depending on what you want. But you can see that the mesh is now really nice here. It's also following this threading, and that is really cool. I really like that. And you have a lot of other things that you can set up here, like you can use a vertex map for density, for example. You can play with the adaptive count or with adaptiveness in general. So if I bring this up to, let's say, 90, you will see that we will get more detail in those areas that need more detail. So it's like stretched in a way that more detail is where you need it. Adaptive count would adjust the count of polygons. So if I take that, we usually see a way denser mesh. You can see that here. So we added a lot of polygons. And then we can find or detect hard edges depending on automatic algorithms on the shading, like it can take into account the Phong breaks and so on. And also edge selections. If you choose none here, you can drag and drop an edge selection in here. Then we also have symmetric modes. So you can create symmetry, which doesn't make sense here. But another thing I wanted to show is the flow splines. So I created two splines here. One spline is here and the other spline is there, because I want this area here to, well, not have those like diagonal edge flow, but I want to straighten this. And I can do that by dragging and dropping these edge flow helper circles in. And there we go. Now you can see that we adjusted our yeah, edge flow based on this. Now let me go to the next one.
There's a question about the remesh.
Yes.
That that came in, and it's a good one, and it is. And I'm not sure who asked it. Dr. Sassy, if you could let us know. I can't see it in the chat, but it is asked: is it somehow possible to remesh only a part of the whole thing? And so I wonder, is the density map maybe some sort of workaround there?
No, it will always remesh the whole object. You can, and the whole, well, the good thing about this is that it's also procedural. So what I didn't show now is when I move this guy here around, you can see that I'm actually extending the screw here. Let's do it a little bit more. So it has to do all the volume calculations first, and then it has to remesh. That's why it's taking so long. But you can see that, yeah, it will always remesh on the fly. So, but it will always also remesh the whole object. There is no way to just remesh a part of it. You can steer the density a little bit by using the density map, but also not to an extent where you really have like just, let's say, 3 polygons on one side and 1,000,000 polygons on the other side of an object.
I have a crazy idea. Shoot. And it's a little scary because we're live, but and that question was asked by Lookalike Dolls. Thank you for the question. So my ridiculous idea is, what if there were a stop tag on that geometry and it was set to generators?
Then I think then it would prevent the whole thing from being remeshed.
You can assign a selection with the stop tag, though. I'll try it on my end while you continue.
Okay.
I would cut the object in half or whatever is needed, mesh the part you want, and then use the new bridge tool, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's a perfect perfect addition, Sassy. We're gonna show the new bridge tool in a second, but let me show you one more thing, because I didn't really show the symmetry options. So there's a volume builder has to be calculated here when we go to the other scene. So here we go. I have this cap of this bottle. So, and I also have a remesher in here already, and you can see that Symmetric X is activated here. If I deactivate this, and let me also get rid of the depth of field in here so we can see stuff better. You can see that this is what happened. So what I didn't like about this mesh, although it is clean and everything, was that we have this like diagonal edge flow down here. And by using Symmetric X, in this case, it fixed this diagonal edge flow down here. So here you can see that because this now is the symmetry axis, it just made this part of the object perfect. Okay, so let me go to the next one. And the next one that I want to show is indeed the bridge tool. And I'm going to create a new scene for that, because I thought I will show something else than what we can see in the feature video anyway. So let me type in pipe. And there is one pipe that is, or is it called pipe? The double one? Yeah, here we go. So I'm going to add this pipe from the asset browser. And so what if we want to adjust a few things here? First, I might want to, I will open those ends here and there. And I will do that by going to Polygon mode. And I'm going to use func break selection to select this one. And then we have to grow the selection once. I think the shortcut is U and Y. Yes. And then I'm gonna delete these polygons here. And I'm gonna go to edge selection, loop selection. So here we go in edge mode and select these two edges. And what I'm going to do next is, well, let me do this a little bit differently than I actually planned. So I'm first going to close these holes here, and I'm going to use the close polygon hole tool for it, because even the close polygon hole is coming with a new mode. So we can simply close a polygon hole, but we can also do that in grid mode now, and this will create a nice grid of the of whatever you have here. I have another example there which is even more impressive than just doing two circles, but however, I want to use the Fong break selection again to select those two sides here, and now we're going to use the bridge tool. So here's the bridge tool, and we're going to bridge this part over to this part. So let me do this. I'm just going to bridge them, and you can see, well, this is pretty ugly. So let me increase the subdivisions. And one thing that has been added with S26 is that we can now use tension here, and we can increase this. And now you can see that we can create like a perfect rounding here. So this is something that is now, or can now be achieved very, very quickly. So another thing that's cool about this, and let me first, again, get rid of those caps here, like so. And I'm also going to select the loops already. And then I'm just going to create a copy of this whole thing. So let me create a copy, and I'm going to rotate this whole thing and move it up here. Like so. So what we can do with the bridge tool is we can not only create bridges that are part of the very same object, but we can do this also across multiple objects. So if I go to edge mode now, and you can see I already selected these edges. If I now use the bridge tool again and go from here to there, I can totally do that. It's exploding now a little bit, but that is down to the mode here. By default, it is set to normal because it's, well, that's the mode that you would need if you want to like extrude something or bridge something to another place when you start with with polygons. But you can also set this to surface, and then it would just follow the surface. And based on the tension that you use here, you can create a rounding or not. All right, so let's say let's first bridge the other side as well, because I also want to show you two other new tools. So let me bring the tension down here to 0, and also the subdivisions down to 0. So now we have this. And we can, let's say we want to loop cut this. So let's create a few loop cuts, and you can see that they are not, well, equally distributed at all. So they are just randomly created in here. But when I now choose my loop selection tool and select these new loops here, I have two new tools that are pretty awesome. So the first one can be found under Mesh and Move. Well, all of them can be found under Mesh and Move. I'm going to undock this. So the first one I want to show is equal spacing. And with equal spacing, we can simply interactively equalize the spacings here, which is pretty cool. But it will be like linear. It won't adjust the shape here. So I can also undo this. And instead, I'm going to use the set flow tool. And this is actually one of my favorite new tools here, because what you can do with that is you can make this whole thing round. Of course, in order to make this work, this has to be one geometry. So let me go back here and let me also connect those two objects and delete. And we're gonna optimize using UO. I'm not sure if that works when I have this selected. So here we go. All right. So now if I use set flow, you can see that it's using the flow of the existing or of the attached parts of the surface, and we can make this round again. And we can also use equal spacing in here. So let me bring this up to 100%, and you can see we can go from straight to a very nice rounding here. And the cool thing is that this does not just only work with straight stuff, but also when you created a rounding using the bridge tool, for example, you can correct this if you want to. So let's choose the edge flow tool again, and there we go. Now they are pretty much the same, except for the difference in loop count. So this is a really amazing thing. Right, so yeah, the other thing that you can do with the bridge tool is you can just like select polygons, and then you can just create handles like that, for example. Let me again increase the subdivision and the tangent, and now we need to go to normal mode again. So you can create those handles pretty easily. So you just select one here, you select one there, and then there is a handle.
That is so cool.
It is really cool, and it is so fast now to model with this. It's really amazing. So let me undo this because I want to show you something else, of course. So let me create a few loop cuts here, like one here, one there, and I'm also going to select a few polygons. I'm gonna inner extrude them or inset them. And now you can see there is a new tool that is called Fit Circle. So, and when I use that, you can turn anything into a circle. You have controls for the angle, and also controls to project this onto the surface. Let me show this to you here, maybe. Let's inset it just a little bit and then use Fit Circle again. So by default, you can see, all right, this is straight, but if I project on surface, you can see that it's following the curvature here, which is also really nice. All right, which ones did I miss? All right, cool. So there are a few more, of course. So one is the Straighten Edges tool. What this does is pretty much what you might expect from the naming. You select a few edges, and then you use the Straighten Edges tool, and you can just straighten this. And then there is another tool that is called Smooth Edges, and let me simply create a plane here. This one is big, and let me do 20 by 20, for example, and I'm gonna make it editable and select a few edges with path selection in live path mode. So let's do something like this. And when I have this, I can now use the Smooth Edges tool and just smooth these, which is also really nice. And Sassy made a nice example using the Smooth Edge. It was the Smooth Edges tool, wasn't it, Sassy? So he created a gallery.
Yeah.
And I like this. I mean, the geometry is very simple, but I like the whole idea of having this whole stuff in a gallery. So this is really nice.
This is very cool.
It's just a pathfinder on a normal plane, then smoothed out, incest, extrude, incest, and subdivision. Materials, and done. It was so much fun to create these Miró-like stuff.
Yeah.
Thanks for showing.
You can create it in such a fast way, but
yeah,
it has a cool effect. Also, like we are going to come to cloth simulation later. You can use those edges then for or as tearing edges, for example. So those might help you with the tearing to to make it look good. Okay, so did we miss anything? Oh yeah, the Flatten tool. So let me go to this one.
Can I say real quick that the smooth edges is such a huge time saver when you're modeling things by hand with like loops and polygons, and anytime you do anything by hand, it's going to get really irregular. So that brings uniformity back into it and smooths everything out. It's just a lifesaver.
Yeah, Yeah, so then there is the Flatten Tool. So if you choose the Flatten Tool, yeah, we can just flatten those selected polygon islands. We can do it like this, and you can see the mode is set to best fit. So in this case, we can adjust the position a little bit from minimum to maximum. There are also other other modes, like you can do it from the view. This would always just use the camera plane for flattening. Yeah, normal is a little bit like best fit, but if I remember correctly, normal is using like the polygon normals, and I think best fit is using the points. Well, then we have world axis, so you can just bring everything to the world axis in X, Y, and Z. And we have modeling axis, and modeling axis can be really cool. Let me quickly have a look at my filters here. Let me set them to default, because if you have a modeling axis, you can also like rotate this stuff and so on. But let me undo this and let me switch to, well, flatten and modeling axis. So that's good, but we can already, if we use axis mode, we can already move this axis around like so, for example. And then if we use modeling axis, apply, you can see that we're using this axis that we just created. All right, so yeah, that's the Flatten Tool. The cool thing about the Flatten Tool is that it's also working, like you just saw it, on multiple islands, but it also works on multiple islands across multiple objects. And this can be a huge deal in some situations. All right. Let me see, what else do we have? Yeah, there is a new poke polygons command, and poke polygons is really cool because what it's doing, it's creating like a point in the middle of each polygon. Can be a triangle, can be a quad, can be an n-gon. And it's connecting all like surrounding points with it. So what you can do with that is when you go to Mesh, Add, and then Poke Polygons, you can even bring up some settings, and there you have an offset. And in this case, this object is really small, so we can type in like 0.1 centimeters equals 1 millimeter. And if you do that, you can create a surface like that. Let me switch off depth of field. So here we go. We just created this surface. And the other cool thing about the new modeling features is that you can use them as well with node capsules in the object manager. And I want to show this to you like in a new scene. Just create a platonic or something, and then we bring up the asset browser, and here under operators and then geometry modifiers. I really love working with these. I typically set this to list view and bring down the size so I have everything listed here, and you can see there is poke polygons, and we can just make it a child of this platonic or add it as a child. And this is a node-based asset. But it's working in the object manager. Let me quickly bring in the lines, and you can see that it did the very same thing, but it is now totally procedural, which means that we can do stuff like this. We can also increase the segments here, and it will just work on it. We can even create a copy, and then it will poke it again. Let me just do a little offset to the inside. Something like this, and then maybe another one, a little bit to the outside, stuff like that. And if you do this and now play with the parameters of the first one, you can create these effects, and all of this is animatable. So there's a lot of great stuff possible in here. Right. Okay. I think, well, we are already 30 minutes in, and we have other topics to show as well. So I'm going to switch to Darren now. Are you ready? Oh, unless there are any
You,
questions.
you totally missed your segue from modeling into cloth.
Oh, that was because I thought you were going to show Redshift first.
Oh yeah. Thanks for the reminder. Why don't I do that?
Okay, so are there any modeling related questions for now? Let me double check here. But I think we are good, aren't we? Well, you just let me know. And then, yeah, we can show it later. So I'm going to switch to Darren's screen. There we go. Darren, you're live.
Oh no. Yay. Yeah, so yeah, a lot is we actually got a lot with Redshift. Some changes to the interface. We'll start off with that. So when we switch to the Redshift renderer, now all the lights are replaced with Redshift lights, and so that's really great. Not having to go to like the main menu to add those. So we didn't really necessarily need that menu up here anymore. So that is no longer up here, but can be brought back through your preferences. So if we go to our Redshift renderer preferences, there is a Redshift main menu option, which you can enable, and that will return the Redshift menu. Let's say that Redshift menu that we've grown so accustomed to back up there. Let's see. Also, Redshift CPU. So that now Redshift can render everywhere. You don't need specific hardware any longer, which is pretty amazing. We got a new standard material, which I'm going to show you in just a moment. And I actually used it for these materials on these rings, which were created by this amazing ZRemesh artist and jewelry designer, and Thomas Wittelsbach. There we go. He has the ZRemesh Jewelry Workshop, but here is his Instagram, and I mean, this stuff is just gorgeous. So I was,
wow. That's really fantastic.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, T.S. Wittelsbach. So yeah, so really awesome stuff. But yeah, so I was asked if I could throw together some Redshift materials that looked like these renders, and some of these are actual prints, but I believe these might have been from Keyshot, from ZRemesh to Keyshot. Yeah, so I got to it, and I thought it would be a good vehicle to get into the new standard material. Now, when we go to our Redshift materials menu, we have the old material, the classic one that we're accustomed to, the Redshift material, but at the bottom, we now have standard. So we can add that. And if I double click on it, I'm actually going to get the material editor window, not the node editor, but I can open the node editor right here. But really, all the settings for this are actually right here. When we have to start adding noises and textures and stuff, then we're going to get into nodes. But at the base level, we have all of the standard material properties right in front of us, which is great, and a thin film, which is really cool, and we'll get there. So there are some differences. This is focused more on the Metalness workflow. So if I'm going to drag this onto the skull ring, and I'm already rendering, so there we go. So we can just switch to a Metalness, a metal material right there, and now the, we had that separation between like the reflection and, the transparency, the refraction, reflection and roughness. With this material, which is based on the, is it the Arnold's standard material? Is that right?
Yes.
There's a lot of these, there's interdependencies between these now. So it actually sort of streamlines things and opens it up to some new control, which is, I think, better. There's a new diffuse model for like porous surfaces, or very fine surfaces like sand. And so let's go back here and let's get this reflection down. And if we just sort of look at how the light and the shadow is playing on, across this skull, when we switch to that other model, it just looks like much softer, and this actually looks much more like sand and softer surfaces. So, okay, let's switch back over here. Yeah, so a lot of the reflection is the same. Transmission is where we're going to have our transparency as we are accustomed to it. But now, since it is linked with that reflection, we do have this extra roughness on top of that. So let's get that roughness and the reflection down, and then we can bring that up. But now we also have a a scatter color, and this reminds me of the in the classic Cinema 4D transparency, where we had the transparency color and the scatter color. I don't remember if it was actually called scatter color. Do you recall, Jonas?
It was called absorption color, I think.
There you go. Thank you. So this is similar. So, we set a depth, anything beyond 0, and then we're going to start to get that color being scattered within that depth. So, of course, the greater the depth, the more diffuse, the less of that color we'll actually see. So this is very dependent on the scale of your scene. So, but I mean, it just looks great. All right, so let's put that back down to 0. Let's see, let's add a little bit of roughness here, because I'm going to be getting to thin film shortly, and I don't need this transmission, that transparency. Subsurface, the single scatter subsurface, the simple subsurface scattering is here. And this works the same way. Ellie did a great session going over that, so I'm not going to get into that. Sheen, and this is totally new thin film. So, with a thickness of 0, we see no thin film. Let me bring the color down here so we can see more of just the reflection, right? Black and white. We add a little bit of thickness, and we're going to start to get some variation, some hue, different colors based on the thickness and the IOR value. So we can already see a very heavy thin film right there. And by adding a noise to this, we can even make it pop more. So let's pop open the node editor. And then I'm going to actually control click on thickness to add that input to the node, and then double click in here, and I'm going to go noise, and I'm going to get the Maxon noise and connect it to the thickness, and let's change the noise type. Let's I don't know, let's do fire. And I'm going to solo this noise so I can see and affect its scale more more efficiently. So here we go. Let's go to overall scale. I'll go down to a tenth and let's try 0.2. Yeah, 0.05. There we go. So there's some white, gray, and some black. And if we remove the soloing, then you can see where that noise is being used in the to affect the thickness. But it is based, so I think like black would be, where we go? Here we go. Black would be like 0, and then white would be whatever the maximum value of thickness is. I'm not even sure what that maximum value is. Not off the top of my head anyway. But that's, very cool. And let's go ahead and take that out. So thin film, very welcome new feature in the new standard material in Redshift. Let's see, thin film coat, as we're all accustomed to. Then we have, emission, and then finally here we have bump. It's always been a thing where it's like, where is bump? Whenever I'm doing like a training session with someone, I always have to go into the node and then show, okay, well, we have to go to overall and then add that bump input. But there was no other visual indicator. But now we have it right there in the geometry. So we can just, control click on that dot, and it opens up the node editor and we get the input. And then we could add a bump map and a noise. I shouldn't have deleted that noise. How am I doing on time?
You're doing great.
Okay, awesome.
What do you mean? We're 45 minutes in, so yeah.
Okay, all right. So I'll ramp it up. Anyone? Okay, all right.
I got it.
Never mind.
I got it.
Thank you. All right. All right. So let's see. So anyway, that's nice. I've just sort of found this material overall to be actually easier, and I've been overall more pleased with the results I've been getting from it. So I've really been enjoying that. And let's get rid of that material. And so yeah, I actually used it to create the material on these 2 rings in the bottom left. And there's I believe it's a new node. It's, we've always had this material blender, but now there's a material layer. So let me actually open up this this window here. So I have 2 of these new standard materials, and they are going into the new material layer node. So, it's, I guess the end result is like blending, is like the material blender. But, this is just sort of I really got to get into some of the technical details myself to really pick it apart and figure out exactly what the differences are. But right off the bat, it's just sort of a simple way, more simple, I think, than the material blender to blend or layer materials. So this material, I just drove with really just noise. And I do think I used a texture for the bump. Yeah, there we go. It's going into, yep, so that goes into a bump on this first material, which I will solo. I have, Jonas, really been enjoying soloing in the Cinema 4D nodes interface versus in the Redshift shader graph interface, where we had to connect the node to the output.
Yep.
This solo is much faster, which I've been enjoying. But as you can see with this standard material, I have going into the base weight and metalness, essentially curvature nodes. I have layered them together with a Maxon noise into their contrast. just so they're not perfectly uniform. But I've layered these together in the color layer node, and then that goes into the oops.
It goes into the oops?
Metalness. It goes into the oops. into the metalness and of this first material. The second material is very similar, except there's a little bit more color, and I've actually added this material onto the previous one through the material layer node to create this material. So these other materials on like the mermaid's ring and on these wings, these are actually the classic Redshift material because I was sort of bouncing between them. Now we did get a question about what if we want to use the Redshift shader graph. You still can. There is a preference for that also. We'll go to our preferences into the render Redshift. And let's see, where did it go?
Isn't it the node materials for presets?
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so node materials is the new nodes. We turn that off. And then if I now create a new Redshift standard material, for example, now you see right there, it's the Redshift shader graph. And there is the new standard material in Redshift in the old Redshift shader graph. So it's still here. It's just sort of moved. Let's see. I believe Michelle said that there were a lot of Redshift questions. Is there any that I can speak to right now while I'm here?
Well, one was can you quickly show how to bring in a vertex map into the shader graph or the Redshift material using the vertex attributes attribute node?
Yeah, I think I might even have a selection to work with on the wings.
You can just do it with a plane or a sphere. It's doesn't have to be.
So let's see. Yeah, so I actually have some selections here. So let's just start this. So I think I put so I have one material over the whole thing. And you know what, we'll do this. Did they specifically ask for in the nodes or shader graph, or it doesn't matter?
Just show it in C4D nodes. And,
okay.
Yeah. Oh, a cappella elevator music. Love it.
It's for you, man. I know you love the sound effects.
I love it.
Okay, yeah, node editor. So every time I have to shift my thinking, I always start zoning out. The Adderall is supposed to help with that, but I should talk to my doctor. Anyway,
I can help you.
I swear I took it today.
I can be your memory.
Say again?
I can be your memory.
Okay.
At least
you.
now.
Please. All right, I'm just going to convert this to a point selection, and then I'm going to go select. Of course, this is in the way. Select set vertex weight, and I'll say this is 100%. Were they asking for weight data? I'm sorry, I forgot.
Vertex map. It doesn't matter. Vertex map into node material.
Okay. So let's go. Vertex, and then I'll go like red here. Oh, it's really slowing down. Yeah, this was too dense of a mesh to do this on. So I'd like to cancel out of this brush and switch to a plane as you originally suggested.
I can also show it if you want me to.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead, because right now Cinema 4D is calculating the paint stroke I did on all of these points.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna take over. So my screen is now live. All right, so I'm just going to paint a vertex map here. So this is my vertex map. It's not, well, actually it is very nice, but easy. However, I'm gonna switch to Redshift here. And I'm also going to create a new material. Yeah, let's go with the standard. And I'm gonna apply it to the plane. And now I already have pretty much all ingredients I need. So I double click here on the material to open it. And yeah, right now I'm just gonna bring up the node editor. And I'm gonna search for a node that is called Vertex Attribute. So Vertex Attribute, here we go. So that's it. And we're just gonna pipe that into the color. And then we can simply drag and drop the vertex map into the attribute name. And if we solo this, this should actually work once we start the IPR. So here you go. It's the vertex attribute node. Once it is selected, you just drag and drop a vertex map into the attribute name, and then you can use the vertex map in a shader. That's the whole thing about it. Cool. Yeah,
so if you do end up typing out, like if you're coming from ZRemesh, you likely know what the name of that map will be. So if you are going to jump in there and type it out, then just make sure that you know it is case sensitive. So
yeah, but that's the beauty about it. I mean, well, I mean, not that it's case sensitive, but
drag and drop.
That it is name based. So whenever you have a vertex map on any other object that is called vertex map in this case, then this material will use that vertex map for whatever you want to do with it. Right, so let me not save this. And I actually just noticed that I forgot to show you two incredible things. One with the bridge tool and one in the polygon hole, close polygon hole tool. I actually promised to show this stuff and then I forgot. So
yeah, these are like the coolest.
These are, yeah, these are the coolest. So what you can do in the bridge tool is there is a new mode which is called patch mode. And using patch mode, you can, let me just select, well, so let me select these edges here. So yeah, the important thing is that they are somehow like on the opposite of the hole. And then when patch mode is active, you can just patch this whole thing and you can see that this topology will be kept. So this, can we call this a crease? However, this thing is still there. And then another thing that we can do is we can create one-sided patches. And here's a little tip. If you have an active selection and you don't want to use that, but you want to keep it, you can, I think it's is it the shift key or is it the command key? One of the two. Yeah, the shift key. If you use the shift key, you can just use any other
great
selection that you want to use. And then you can do something like this and it will always follow this shape. The important thing is that you have or that one side is like closed, so to speak, and then you can use the one-sided patch.
The example you did in your video on the like trunk of the car was awesome.
That's what I wanted to show next, but that actually isn't. Yeah, I just forgot to show it. That's close polygon hole, and close polygon hole, I mentioned it earlier, has got the grid mode here, and you can now just click here. Wait, where is it? Here we go. And you can see that it is working really fine. And you can do that with all of these holes here. Yeah, this one is special because it has a bit more than just a grid, but it's also trying to follow like these lines here. And the one that is the most impressive on this car is here on the back. So now look at this. I mean, this is pretty complicated because, well, not because of the shape or of the outline, but because it is going like over this sort of curvature. But look at this. I mean,
Yeah.
come on. You would never expect that there used to be a hole at some point. So
Yeah.
this is really great. So
Awesome.
the new modeling features are big time savers. Yeah, I just wanted to add this because yeah, I just forgot it, and it's important to know this. Right, so let's jump to the next scene, which is empty, and this means that we're also going to start a new topic here. I mean, we have, in theory, we would have 1 minute left, but what would be an Ask the Trainer session without overrunning it? So here we are, starting the second hour of this Ask the Trainer webinar. Right, so when you want to work with cloth or simulation, typically what people do, and this is why I want to do this as well, they create a sphere. They may bring up the segments here, let's say 50, and then people tend to create a plane, place it here, maybe increase the segments 50 by 50, and then they start adding like some sort of simulation. So here's the thing: you can now right-click the object that you want to be like simulated, cloth simulated, and you go to simulation tags, and there is this cloth and rope stuff, new tags, new algorithms, and so on. If you are wondering where the rigid body and soft body went, that is bullet engine, so you can now find this under bullet tags. Here's rigid body, soft body, collider, ghost body, and so on. So the old ones can be found here, but this is the new simulation menu. This has changed. So I want to make the plane like clothy, so I add cloth and I make the sphere a collider, and you know what? I'm going to dock off this guy and just make this a collider, and then I just press play and you can see that it works. It's like a little bit stiff. You can go into the settings here. You can bring up the bendiness, for example, and we have all of these nice parameters, but I want to show you these parameters in another scene where we can compare these with like another object. Like if you have those artifacts here, they are coming from the Phong shading and or from the Phong tag, because the Phong angle is not set high enough. So there are two things you could do about this. First, you could like increase the density, and then you would have to adjust the parameters. Or if you want to go the cheap way, you just bring up the Phong angle and smooth it this way. Oh, we have to go a little higher. So here we go. Everything everything until 120 degrees will be smoothed now. All right, in some cases it works, in some cases it doesn't. Yeah, up to the situation. So let's go to this scene. And I can tell you, I even have one scene here that is beautiful. This one is just basic, but we're going to do the same thing here. We add cloth tags and we add a collider body, and then we hit play, and you can see that this is happening. And I want to show you a few things here. First, let me bring up one thing. Well, they are way too bendy, but you can see that bendiness is already down and stretchiness is also down. So one of the important things about these algorithms is that sometimes you have to go to the project settings, and under simulation, again, here it's the same. If you want to see the bullet simulation settings, you find them under bullet, and simulation is the new stuff. So we now have these settings here. We can simulate on the CPU, on the GPU. Right now I'm on the GPU, and you can adjust all of this stuff. And there are a few parameters that are affecting the stiffness of objects, the substeps and the iterations. So if we bring up substeps, for example, like 50, you can see that the objects are now much stiffer. That has something to do mathematically with how precise this stuff will be calculated, and the higher you go with substeps or iterations, the more precise it will be. And this will also increase the stiffness. Right, so let's compare a few things. So this is the right sphere and this is the left sphere. So let's do the changes on the right one. So if we increase the bendiness, what we can do, or what's happening is you can, or the angle between edges or polygons can be higher. In this case, that doesn't make much sense. Let's go with stretchiness. Let's bring this up to, let's say, 0.1. And you already see the difference between the two a little bit. Let's go even higher. And maybe even higher. So here we go. So there are quite a few cool things possible. You can also bring up the bounciness, which will add like a little bit more like jiggly, like jelly attributes, so to speak. We can bring up the thickness. That would be like a collision margin or so. If we bring that up to, let's say, 30. Oh, now it's flying away. Here we go. Next one. You can see that this is now like, well, floating above the surface. All right, and then we have mass, and mass is not affecting like the speed of objects falling down, because we are effectively in a vacuum here. So still, let me increase this to, let's say, 100, because you should see it like in the behavior of the constraints that are affecting this cloth simulation. All right. So yeah, quad diagonals is something that we can show later. It's better to show that with something that is hanging down. Then we have balloon settings, so we can actually tell this algorithm that it should act like a balloon. And what this is doing is, even if you bring up the stretchiness a lot, it's trying to preserve the volume as good as it can. So let's bring this up even more, like so. And you can see that it's now way more wobbly. And you can...
looks like flubber.
Yeah, you can add some overpressure. So let's bring this up to 5, then it will be bigger. You can even go negative, then it would like be sucked together. And this would be the expansion time. Like when you keyframe the 1 that is in here and 5 a few frames later, it will always use the expansion time that you set up here. And then there is another thing that is quite funny to play with, which is plastic deformation. And if you switch that on, and let me also create a cube and place it here, let's make it a child of the plane, because this way it will become a collider. And if we do that, oh, and let's also keep balloon activated. If we do that, well, it's way too stretchy. That's why it's not working at the moment. You can see, gonna deactivate it. Yeah, you can see that it will keep this shape from the impact here. All right, and then we have tearing options, but we can also show them like in something using something that is falling down or so, or hanging down. Great. So yeah, these are those parameters that you can play with, and you can really create stunning stuff with that. However, there is another thing that you need to know about this, because you cannot only alter attributes by using those tags here. I already showed you the project settings, what you can set up here. And you can see that we have those 2 cloth tags in here and the collider. But what we can have in a scene is we can have multiple simulation scenes. So right now, the important thing to know is that those 2 spheres, or those objects, everything that is in the default simulation scene will interact with each other. So we are having something like this at the moment. This would also work with rope simulation, and if it's just fabric falling down, let me just create another plane and make it a little bit more dense, like so, and move it up, and maybe just also add some cloth and bring up the bendiness a little bit. So everything that is in here will just work together, right? So this is cool, but sometimes we have setups, multiple simulation setups in one scene that don't necessarily need to interact with each other, but they might benefit from different simulation settings. Like I'm gonna use Control D to bring up the settings here. So we can have multiple simulation scenes here in this Cinema 4D project, and you find that under Simulate Simulation Scene. So let me create 2 of them, and this one is going to be the one for the right sphere, and this one is, wait, that's the plane, and this one is for the left sphere. So what I want to do now is I want to add the sphere, the right sphere, to this one, and we don't have to drag and drop the tag in here, the object in here, but the tag. So we're gonna use the tag here. So in this case, it makes sense to rename the tags actually. Let me do this. So here we have the right sphere tag, and we also need the collider. So the one thing that is important to know that only colliders can be part of multiple simulation scenes. Those other objects that are actually simulated cannot be part of multiple simulation scenes. All right, so let me go to the left one, and I'm going to add the left.
Can I clarify on something while you're dragging and dropping? Okay, so a couple things. One, every time you create a new file, it has already the simulation scene. That is in the project settings that Jonas showed us earlier.
Yeah, that's the default one. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And then, so you can add more, as he did. And also, thank you, Noseman, for pointing out that let's not overlook that we're dragging the tags into here, not the objects.
Yeah, I showed that.
Yeah,
I showed that. So
okay, cool.
Yeah,
thank you.
And now the thing is that if we click here, you can see that we now have like actually 3 simulation scenes. There are the 2 that we have here, but there's still the default one. Everything that is not in one of those simulation scenes is in the default one, and the plane right now is in the default one. So let's add the plane to this one, and let's hit play. Yeah, and you can see that the plane is now interacting with one of the spheres, but not with the other one, and that's what I meant when I said that the objects that are simulated in different simulation scenes are not interacting with each other. That's important to know. But the advantage clearly is that you can work with different simulation parameters, or with different simulation settings. So, for example, here in the one for the right sphere, we could say, okay, I want to simulate this one on the CPU and the other one on the GPU. That's possible. We can also say that, let me set this to GPU again, because GPU is just faster. We can also go up with the substeps on one of them to make the whole thing stiffer. We can bring up the collision passes and all of the other settings as well. And you will see that now they are behaving differently because we have different settings in here. So as a rule of thumb, whenever you have objects that are like interacting with each other in a fast way. So let's think of some carpet that is hanging down, or some sort of curtain that is hanging down, and you want to move a sphere through that so that it's simulated all together. The sphere might be too fast, and if that happens and you don't have an interaction or an error in the interaction, then you have to increase the substeps. Because the substeps are the steps in between 2 frames that are calculated additionally to make the simulation more accurate. And the same thing, well, it's not the same thing. It's a little bit different, but iterations is more or less like the accuracy per substep. Yeah, you can bring that up. And then we have smoothing iterations. This is also a good one and a faster one than the other 2. If you want to avoid jitter, or if you want to reduce jitter. Then, yeah, damping is something that you should never go like beyond 3 or 4. Otherwise, your whole animation will look a little bit like it was floating in the water. But the collision passes are something that can also be very important, because collisions are important. However, I actually forgot to prepare one of these other other scenes. I will show that later. So, but one thing that I wanted to show is that in here, in the tag, you can see that we can unfold for every parameter a map link field. So everything here, all of these parameters can be controlled with a vertex map. So you can paint a vertex map. Let me show this quickly to you. Maybe I'm gonna delete those two and let me paint a vertex map.
If you're gonna show tear, I actually have something.
Okay, then you show it. Let me just create a vertex map here. So this is my vertex map, and I'm gonna drag and drop that vertex map into the stretchiness in here. And I'm going to bring up the stretchiness to, let's say, 10. So let me also bring up balloon and let's make this 10. So let's see what happens. So you can see that this whole thing is inflating in that area that I just painted. So this is what you can do with vertex maps in different parameters here. It's pretty cool stuff. And I want to show you another thing that is quite nice. I created a setup that allows you to use a field here to control where those posters are like detached from the wall. So here we go. This time we can start down here. There's a little bit of wind in the scene, and I want to show you how you can set this up. So let me get rid of these tags here. And let me also get rid of the vertex maps for now. Okay, so what I have here is just like a little simulation. If I press play now, you can see that those posters are falling down. But there is a way how you can attach these posters to the wall. And this is by using the cloth belt. You can belt cloth, that was possible before, but I want to show you some of the cool things that you can do with that. And now we go to point selection and make sure that all of our points are selected. We are going to drag and drop the plane, this is the back wall, into this belt on field and hit set. And you can see that all of these points are yellow now. And if I hit play now, you can see that everything is sticky on the wall. We can untick draw here. And yeah, they are just sticky. But what we can do is we can adjust the influence here. If I bring that down to 0, for example, and hit play, you can see that these are falling down again. If I bring it up to 100%, they are sticky. Right, so now if I use a vertex map and a spherical field in that vertex map, I can actually control live where I want these posters to be detached. So let's do this. I'm going to paint a vertex map for this one, and I'm gonna paint a vertex map for this one as well. And in both vertex maps, I want to enable use fields. And then I have to set this up separately, like so. And I want to bring in the spherical field into both of them. And now the spherical field is controlling where the magic happens. So let's have a look. Is it already working? No, it's not working because I didn't attach the vertex map here. I didn't assign it. So here we go. And the vertex map, of course, needs to be assigned. And now you can already see that it's working. So if I now move the field around, like so, you can see that the stuff is detached, but it's also reattaching, which is not working too well here at the moment. And the reason for that is that in the vertex map, I need to add something. And this is a decay field, because with the decay field, I can tell the spots that either have the maximum weight or the minimum weight to stay as they are. to stay at their maximum or minimum. In this case, because we are using the minimum, I'm going to set this to minimum and bring it up to 100%. And I'm going to do the same in the other field. I should have used a group field to just...
So without the decay, the value that weight would change, and then when the sphere came in, and then when it goes away, it changes back.
Exactly.
So the decay like sticks it.
Exactly. The decay sticks it. So here we go. Now we can do that. And I really love that effect. How cool is that? I mean,
it's a really cool example.
And you can do that with any sort of stuff. I saw Chris Schmidt doing this on text at NAB. So yeah, it's a really cool thing. Great. So let me quickly see if I can quickly find my tearing example.
So I actually have a ballooning tear example, which I think is fun to look at. And also we still want to talk a little bit about rope before it gets too late.
Yeah, that's true. I just want to show you I actually recorded a quick tip for that already. So I just want to show the scene and the tearing, where I also used like a vertex map to control the tearing. But Darren will show you how you can set this up. Right?
That's cool. Is that the next that's the quick tip scene file?
Yeah.
That's cool.
All right. So yeah, let me switch to Darren.
I'm ready.
Are you ready? All right. So
yes,
I'm going to switch. You
awesome.
Have the screen now.
Yay. All right. So yeah, so this is actually a head from the asset browser. Maybe you recognize them.
I do.
So we got cloth on him, and he is ballooning over 90 frames, 3 1/4 its original volume, and he's going to keep doing that, and he's going to float up. And I just love all of the distortions and everything that happens in his face. But the thing is, because that ballooning is based on the volume, as soon as a tear appears, that all that air is lost, that volume is lost. So I've turned on tearing, and it starts to inflate, and eventually something tears somewhere there. It looks like it was the eye, and it just sort of starts going crazy. But using that map, we can actually specify where that tear should happen, as it's just illustrated. So I actually just painted a small little bit there on his mouth so that there we go. So that it'll tear there, and then the volume should be lost from that point, but that didn't take for some reason. Let's stop, rewind. Stop, rewind. It did have this at 2000 earlier. Oops, Vertex Map. Yes. Let's try it one more time. But when this was when that was, there it goes. Yeah, it did happen. It just sort of happened on the inside. And because this is a simulation, it is, there we go. Finally, we're starting to see it, the opening of the mouth there.
Oh yeah, it's happening.
Yeah.
It looks so funny. We should do that with 3D scans of ourselves.
Oh my gosh. I'm down. Yeah, well, we'll have to scan ourselves next week.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, so balloon and tearing. And shall I get into rope and connector real quick?
Yes, just one thing that Sassi pointed out in the background, and Thanasis as well, that with the new cloth system, you can generate like stable hair while tearing on pieces of cloth, which is quite a huge deal. And also MoGraph clones will stick to their original position after tearing. That's quite a huge thing.
Oh my gosh, I haven't even tried that yet. Dare I? Oh, it didn't like that. Restore selection. Here. Polygons. Oops, I got a bit of eye in there.
It's nice.
Um,
It's NFT art anyway.
oh, wow. That is cool.
It really is that. It's even much more funny than the original one.
Yeah, there's still plenty of collision issues because I've not set everything up correctly, but that's very cool.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for the reminder, guys.
Yeah.
Anything else before?
I think you can carry on.
Okay. So let's see. This was a little example I put together for the release video, and is just using the new rope on this spline and the cloth on the leaf. And so here's like the scene in Cinema 4D. There's the spline object with the rope and a connector, which actually is searching. Oh, forgot that it did that. It's actually searching around every, not just the point of the spline, but the intermediate points of the spline. Now, this is a linear spline. There are no intermediate points. And I did that so it'd be more rigid because it's, Spiderweb. That makes sense. Which
you already pointed out a pretty nice thing in comparison to the old spline dynamics. The old spline dynamics only worked on the real points, and the rope dynamics, they also work on intermediate points. So you can create a spline with 2 points, but with 100 intermediate points, and it will use the intermediate points.
Yeah. I actually got the web object in here. You can actually find this from the asset browser. It is part of the spider scene in the example scenes. So that's where I got this guy from. Cool. So, we'll just hop on the rope and press play, and it's going to drop and fall apart. And, I'll just hit G. We can see that the whole thing is just falling apart. So we have this connector, which I just showed a moment ago. Let me add it on here. Now, always draw will always draw the connections, which we can't see now. But I'm going to go ahead and increase the search radius. So around every point and intermediate point, it is searching within this specified radius for another intermediate point, and it will create a connection there. So it's not seeing itself because I've not turned on same object. And then I still don't see connections because I have to go click on create. Now I got a couple. I don't have to click on create if I choose update live. So now I can play with the search radius and the max connections, and it's always going to just sort of update as I scrub these values. But these are all connections, and it sort of reinforces, all of these points so that they won't fall apart. Now, this does have its own tearing as well, but I'm not going to mess with that. So, yeah, cool. Let me actually rotate this 90 degrees. Okay, and then I'm going to see, I just want the outside points. So I'm going to go selection. Let's see, what is this? Point selection tag. Looks like it has, okay, I'll just make a new selection. So I'm just going to select these guys on the outside here because I want to fix those. Just like with cloth. So I'm going to just, with those points selected, set them so they stay right there, and we'll do the sphere. I actually prefer the hexahedron because of how it subdivides it a little more uniformly. So we'll bring that down a bit, and then I'll add cloth to that guy, and let's just press play and see what happens. There we go. So that is quite awesome. Now gravity is coming in right off the bat, and I can negate that by, as I believe Jonas has already shown us, we can use the forces. So if I just make that negative.
Oh, I haven't.
Yeah, you have it.
I
What is
haven't.
it? Oh, you haven't. Okay. Yeah. So I got gravity, just inverted the value. So essentially, it's negated all the gravity. But I do want it on the sphere, so I can go to the forces tab and limit to there and disable it. Okay, so what we're used to seeing is an include and exclude fields list in Cinema 4D. And it's a little different here. So when the switch is here, it's on. When it's here, it's excluding it. Okay. So yeah, so that's pretty cool. You know,
It is,
one of the
yeah.
things I ran into real quick that was sort of really messing with me was the points of the clones were coming off of the spiderweb as the spiderweb was moving. And that was because of this simulate before generators. It's actually off by default. So if I press play here, we're going to see the leaf come in. And when it moves that spline, there's a little bit of a delay between the spline and the clones. And so enabling the simulate before generators helps alleviate that issue.
Yeah.
So I think that's what I wanted to show with since we're already going over. What might I have missed, Jonas?
Let me think.
I mean, other than everything else.
Well, I think that's the most important stuff that you showed. Yeah. I mean, I can quickly show how you can create something like a net. So
You do have a cool modeling example for the net.
yeah, that's it's a fun one. So if you want to create like some sort of net, not a spider web, but some sort of net, then you can just create a plane and make it 2 by 2 segments, and then you make it editable and go to points mode. Select the point in the middle, and then you use the bevel tool to create a bevel here. And in the bevel tool, you can bring up the subdivisions, and this way you can create some sort of net, and you go as far as you want, like so, and I'm gonna bring it to the sides here. Right, and now we already have like the right topology, but now I want to turn this whole thing into splines. So what I can do is I can go to edge mode, and then I press Command A to select all of the edges. There we go. And I still want to exclude the outer edges here. So what I just do is I Command click them like so. Here we go, because it's just 8. We can do that manually. All right, and then I go to Mesh, Edge to Spline. And now we have a spline here. This is the spline. And what we can do with the spline is, of course, we can make it a rope. We can, first of all, fix those corner points here. So let's do this. I'm gonna go to points mode. I'm gonna select these points here. And then I just set those to be fixed. We can also rope belt them onto null objects, for example, or any other object. So let's do this. Let's do it this way. So this way it's not flexible. Those points are really stuck here or fixed now in 3D space. But what we can do now is we can, let's start by pressing play, and you can see that everything is falling down there, and showed that already pretty much with the Spiderweb, where this is coming from. It is there is the connector missing. So let me add the connector.
And this also works on cloth.
Yes,
it'll also create connections in the cloth points. So
yeah, so let's do same object here, and I'm gonna.
Well, I don't even know if we said that out loud. That's one of the really awesome things about this new system is that the cloth and what we used to call spline dynamics rope, now they're unified. They're using the same system.
I'm going to show that in a
awesome.
second. So something I fell into in the beginning was that the spline here is set to adaptive by default, the spline that is generated from edge to spline. And I'm going to set it to uniform and decrease the segments to, let's say, 4. Let's hit play again. Yeah, of course, it's still falling apart. But one of the reasons why I did this is because in the connector, I can use those intermediate points. So when I click create now, you can see that those little connections have been established. I can even create more here, like so. And now when I press play, you can see that the whole thing is working. Right, so this is already looking cool, but let me show you that this is working perfectly together with cloth. So I'm gonna create another plane, make it a little bit smaller, bring it up, bring it a little bit to the side, and make it a little bit denser. And I'm also going to add a cloth tag and just increase the bendiness to 10. And I think that should
We've
already...
totally shown this like 3 different ways so far. It's because it's so much fun. We just can't help ourselves.
All right, so here we go. Maybe... Yeah, that's maybe... Let me decrease for now. Or let me go to the settings and let me increase the substeps to make it a little bit stiffer. So let me bring these up to 50. And now we have this. Of course, we have those artifacts because, well, we can simply bring up the Phong angle here again. And I mean, look at this.
You know, you could also put a capsule in there to subdivide it.
Yes. Yes, that's also possible. But another thing that I wanted to show is when you create, like, let's create some weight for like one side here. What we can do is we bring this down to, let's say, a radius of 5. And I'm gonna move this one to the side. And I'm gonna put it here. And now I want to connect this sphere to the spline. So let me first make this cloth. And after that, I want to create a connector. And I'm going to search for other objects now. Search radius can be a little bit bigger. And I'm going to create the connections. And you can see that we now have the connections here. Maybe that's a little bit too much. Let's do it like this. Okay, so we have one connection here. And now those are connected. So when I press play, you can see that this sphere is now hanging on the net, which is pretty cool. And I can now increase the mass to make this way more stretchy. So let's, oh, that was the wrong way. I wanted to increase the mass, not decrease it. So yeah, you can see as soon as I like increase the mass here, it will pull down the net much more and do crazy stuff. But it's all interacting with each other, and it's a lot of fun to play with that stuff.
That's a really good place maybe to show the tearing in the connector.
Yes, we can do that. So let me go to this connector and let's enable tearing. And tearing will now happen if the initial length is 150% or more. So let's see if that's gonna happen. I think something happened, but let me bring this down to 120. the lower you go, and let me, yeah, it's working. There you see. So it's
Bye.
it's a lot of fun to play with that stuff. I think you guys got this. So yeah, unless there are any questions. Are there any questions that we want to answer?
Not in the last 10 minutes.
Okay.
Any other I have submitted.
Cool. That's great. So let
Is
me.
anyone still with us?
Sorry?
Is anyone still watching?
Let me double check. Let me double check. I think there are. Oh yeah,
More than when we started.
Yeah, yeah.
Excellent.
We have quite a few people on here. So yeah, but now we're gonna wrap up. So let me switch to what I usually have here. So am I sharing the right stuff? Yes, I do. So cool. Let me also go to this one. All right. So in case you came in late or you want to rewatch what we did today anyways, well, I'm going a little bit fast here. First of all, I wanted to show you that we have this wonderful page at the Maxon website, maxon.net/events. And you can find it here under News, Events, and you can find all of the webinars that we are doing here and a few other events like FMX, which is happening next week in Stuttgart in Germany, or NAB, which happened this week. And if you missed one of the sessions that we do on this channel here, then you can always go to the Maxon Training Team YouTube channel and find all of the recordings here and a few other things like quick tips and so on. And then there is this nice Ask the Trainer exclusive wear online shop. And there is a link for that, I think, which it was pasted. It has been pasted before to the chat, but I think Michelle is going to paste it again. Yeah, there's also a coupon code that you can use once you enter this site, and then you can get one t-shirt for free. You only have to pay for the shipping. And I just saw that the link and the coupon code have been added to the chat. So thanks for that, Michelle. And yeah, that's pretty much what we had or what we have for today. So thanks everyone for watching. Thanks Darren for showing this great stuff. Thanks Sassi for taking care of questions. Also thanks Noseman, who took care of questions in the background, and of course Michelle, who also managed the chat. Yeah, thank you everyone. We had a lot of fun, and well, in 2 weeks from now there won't be an Ask the Trainer session. The next one is going to be in 4 weeks. That's what I wanted to mention as well. Okay, so see you in 4 weeks, everyone. And
bye, everybody.
Take care.
Thanks for joining.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.